Underground. I am your host, David McCarricker. And today is an interesting day for me to be doing this because it turned out to be a lot more complicated than was planned. This last couple of days got a little chaotic in our personal life. I wouldn't say it was Theory Underground that's going through anything extreme. I mean, it's all good news on the Theory Underground side of things. Think about it. I mean, we are, halfway through the. Hold on, letting Anne into the call here. But yeah, we are halfway through the Idea of the University course, halfway through the PMC Consciousness and Ideology course, and we got a big donation as well that paid for the app that is in development right now. I've come across some pretty big technical complications, but they're not anything beyond or outside of what I already expected, because getting an app going is no joke. It's pretty standard that there would be a lot of technical hurdles, and so I've been dealing with a lot of technical support issues, and that's just all part of what I figure is what I signed up for. When we decided to take that leap and say, no, we're really going to have a course site or a social media site built around courses and texts. And that will be the way of keeping people together in dialogue over time during the countrywide tour, about which we'll have more news as well on this stream. I also had an interview with Dr. Todd McGowan and Michael Downs. There was the three of us. It was a couple hours long. It's really exciting. I'm going to be posting it here in a few days, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, like I said, on the side of Theory Underground, it's cool. We've got a few new people on the forum. We've got a new forum going, in fact, one that is for the $50 tier patrons, or the people who pay for 1/10 of the operating costs. There's a special Patreon forum that's been created for those patrons now, and we've gotten a new one this week. So welcome to the club, Carl. You know how George Carlin says it's a small club and you ain't in it when he's talking about the ruling class? Well, my patrons are a small club and Carl is in it, so welcome. But as far as the personal complications, I want to talk about that. And I want to read a section from Men in Dark Times, which is a work of, it's a collection of essays and lectures by Hannah Arendt. Someone that everyone likes to name or reference kind of vaguely, but never really tarry with. And I love her. I think she's great. I wanted to read from the preface, and then we'll decide on how we feel later, whether or not we will actually get to the lecture that she gives on, or she gives two sort of talks on Carl Jaspers, his life, his legacy. And he's part of my admiration for him. It's not just based in the work that we're reading in the Idea of a University. It's not just based in the fact that he's doing this sort of existentialist project, but that it has a very different flavor that from Sartre and Camus, that it's its own thing that needs to be thought through. He's also a fascinating individual for the reasons that Hannah Arendt will show. And I think that during times when it gets difficult, it's good to go back to this book in particular, Men in Dark Times. Why? Because dark times. I mean, everyone goes through them, and sometimes the whole world goes through them. COVID was particularly difficult for a lot of us, for most of us. But World War II, I mean, that was something else. And that's the dark times that she has in mind. So I'm going to just read a couple of pages here, and then we'll talk about the personal complications here in the last couple days. It's in part kind of a funny story, and Anne will be brought on after I've read this, and we'll just kind of talk about what's going on there. So yeah, I want to just get to it. Here we go. Written over a period of 12 years on the spur of occasion or opportunity, this collection of essays and articles is primarily concerned with persons, how they lived their lives, how they moved in the world, and how they were affected by historical time. The people assembled here could hardly be more unlike each other, and it is not difficult to imagine how they might have protested, had they been given a voice in the matter, against being gathered into a common room, as it were. For they have in common neither gifts nor convictions, neither profession nor milieu. With one exception, they hardly knew of each other. But they were contemporaries, though belonging to different generations, except, of course, for Lessing, who, however, in the introductory essay, is treated as though he were a contemporary. Thus they share with each other the age in which their lifespan fell, the world during the first half of the 20th century with its political catastrophes, its moral disasters, and its astonishing development of the arts and sciences. And while this age killed some of them and determined the life and work of others, there are a few who were hardly affected and none who could be said to be conditioned by it. Those who are on the lookout for representatives of an era, the mouthpieces of the zeitgeist, for exponents of history, spelled with a capital H, will look here in vain. Still, the historical time, the dark times, mentioned in the title is, I think, visible everywhere in this book. I borrow the term from Brecht's famous poem, To Posterity, which mentions the disorder and the hunger, the massacres and the slaughters, the outrage over injustice and the despair when there was only wrong and no outrage. The legitimate hatred that makes you ugly nevertheless, the well-founded wrath that makes the voice grow hoarse. All this was real enough as it took place in public. There was nothing secret or mysterious about it. And still, it was by no means visible to all, nor was it at all easy to perceive it. For until the very moment when catastrophe overtook everything and everybody, it was covered up not by realities, but by the highly efficient talk and double talk of nearly all official representatives who, without interruption and in many ingenious variations, explained away unpleasant facts and justified concerns. I think that's something that I in particular can relate to, seeing today with the duopolistic hate and fear-mongering mainstream and alternative news media scene, right? Is a lot of people are in the habits of just explaining away unpleasant facts and totally valid concerns from the stereotypical left or right. But the point is that there are unpleasant facts that each side are unable to contend with, to integrate, to assimilate, to tarry with. And on the other side, a lot of justified concerns that normal, regular working people would have that neither side is going to take seriously. When we think of dark times and of people living and moving in them, we have to take this camouflage emanating from and spread by the establishment, or the system, as it was then called, also into account. If it is the function of the public realm to throw light on the affairs of men by providing a space of appearances in which they can show in deed and word, for better and worse, who they are and what they can do, Then darkness has come when this light is extinguished by credibility gaps and invisible government, by speech that does not disclose what is, but sweeps it under the carpet, by exhortations, moral and otherwise, that under the pretext of upholding old truths, degrade all truth to meaningless triviality. Nothing of this is new. These are the conditions which, 30 years ago, were described by Sartre in his book Nausea, which I think is still his best book, says Arendt, in terms of bad faith and l'esprit disparu, a world in which everybody who is publicly recognized belongs among the salauds, and everything that exists in an opaque, meaningless there-ness which spreads obfuscation and causes disgust. And these are the same conditions which, 40 years ago, though for altogether different purposes, Heidegger described with uncanny precision in those paragraphs of Being in Time that deal with the they, their mere talk, and generally with everything that, unhidden and unprotected by the privacy of the self, appears in public. In his description of human existence, everything that is real or authentic is assaulted by the overwhelming power of mere talk that irresistibly arises out of the public realm, determining every aspect of everyday existence, anticipating and annihilating the sense or the nonsense of everything the future may bring. There is no escape, according to Heidegger, from the incomprehensible triviality of this common, everyday world, except by withdrawal from it into the solitude which philosophers since Parmenides and Plato have opposed to the political realm. We are here not concerned with the philosophical relevance of Heidegger's analyses, which, in my opinion, is undeniable, nor with the tradition of philosophic thought that stands behind them, but exclusively with certain underlying experiences of the time and their conceptual description. In our context, the point is that the sarcastic, perverse-sounding statement, das Licht der Offentlichkeit werde alles, basically roughly translates as the light of the public obscures everything, went to the very heart of the matter and actually was no more than the most succinct summing up of existing conditions. Dark times, in the broader sense I propose here, are as such not identical with the monstrosities of this century, which indeed are of a horrible novelty. Dark times, in contrast, are not only not new, they are no rarity in history, although they were perhaps unknown in American history, which otherwise has its fair share, past and present, of crime and disaster. That even in the darkest of times, we have the right to expect some illumination, and that such illumination may well come less from theories and concepts than from the uncertain, flickering, and often weak light that some men and women in their lives and their works will kindle under almost all circumstances and shed over the time span that was given them on earth. This conviction is the inarticulate background against which these profiles were drawn. Eyes so used to darkness as ours will hardly be able to tell whether their light was the light of a candle or that of a blazing sun. But such objective evaluation seems to me a matter of secondary importance, which can be safely left to posterity. January 1968. Karl Jaspers is, for Arendt, one of those flickering candles or blazing suns. Either way, someone who, when the entire world was upside down and people could not even appear in public because the public realm itself had been foreclosed by totalitarianism, by the total state of world war, by a media and university system complicit in the destruction. Jaspers was somebody who stood above it all in a sort of sense. And one of the few people who was able to stay true to his principles and hold the world itself up against those. So I might read the rest of that, one of her pieces on Jaspers later, but right now we're going to talk about the complications that we're running into in Aguascalientes, Mexico. And let's see, is Anne, are you there? Wonderful, wonderful. All right, let me see if I can pull this up. Here we go. Welcome to the screen. You are officially visible. Let's see if I can turn off non-video participants. There we go. Cool. Well, welcome to the Week in Review, Anne. How's it going? So what's going on? What is the news? So a person who's just trying to stay in the basic loop here. I mean, I already said, yeah, we're basically halfway through these courses, blah, 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 blah. But as far as our time here in Mexico goes, what's going on? Wrench in the gears, yeah. And I'm sorry to have to interrupt, but James Hamilton in the chat, thanks James, just said that Anne is muted. Let me fix it.
Oh no.
Welcome to the stream, Anne.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
I've been going on and on and on.
I know. So thanks, James. It's good to have people in
Thank
the
you.
chat who are able to let us know when there's a technical difficulty like that. It's sometimes OBS makes it so that this comes through just fine on the microphone side, but I apparently I just wasn't capturing desktop audio, so I'm sorry. And you were doing such a good job
That's
explaining it.
okay.
So and now you're gonna feel
I
like you have
know.
to repeat everything. So basically, you were saying that
Or I
when
here, let me just
you
redo it.
got it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So, Mexico, you come to Mexico. They used to give you a physical tourist document if you were going to be here for 180 days or less. Now they've phased out the physical document. So we get to the airport, we do literally everything they tell us to do. We write down all the exact information. We tell them, yep, we're going to be here till the beginning of June. Like, boom, we give them what they want, what they need, what they asked for. They said, oh, you toured together? Cool. Just fill out one form for the two of you. Great, cool, got it. I know enough Spanish to where like I was understanding what they needed. I could communicate with them. And so to my knowledge, we did everything right. They're like, great, welcome to Mexico. So I just found out a few days ago that this form that used to be physical, all the information that we gave them at the airport, they now like upload it digitally. And so we just have to download that form and just like have it on us if we ever got stopped, if anyone wanted to see, because it's like basically your visa as a United States citizen. I know there's more things that you have to do if you're like from another country. So like it's not always this easy, but for US citizens, it's just like boom, we write our stuff down and they give you this FMM form. It's the tourist visa basically, FMM. And so I go to download mine just a few days ago and I see that even though at the airport we told them when we wrote down that we were going to be here until the beginning of June, that they've only granted us 20 days to be here. And I'm like, that's incorrect. That's ridiculous. We gave them, like, we told them when we were going to leave. They didn't ask for proof. They didn't try to negotiate with us and say, well, you can't be here for that long. They just took our paper and said, okay, come on in. So I'm like, okay, well, crap. I look at it and I'm like, shit, that's like a week away. Like it's now it's like 4 days away. This day that like technically we're not supposed to be here anymore. And so that's stressful. I don't know if you want to add anything. I mean, we went to the immigration office today, which is on the other side of town, got a ride share, showed up. I like kind of tried to talk to the guy at the reception. He's like, oh, there's no one here to help you with this today. Monday's a national holiday. Tuesday, the day that our 20 days is up, there's not going to be anyone in the office to help with this info. So they said, come back on Wednesday. And I said, but like our visa is technically like expired on Wednesday. And he's like, we'll just go on Wednesday. Like, it's fine. Just come back on Wednesday. So I'm like, okay. So basically that's something stressful that we have to deal with. Like,
Yeah,
getting that figured out. So that, because we want to be here legally, we want to like have everything covered so that we can travel freely to other cities and just be out and about and not constantly be like, oh no, are they going to check our documents? Are they going to check our documents? Like, we want to do it right. Like, we respect the process. We're just frustrated that whatever happened at the airport, like, did not transfer onto this document. Yeah. So that was kind of a crazy thing.
yeah, that was also very impressive on your part for being able to communicate all of that in Spanish. What was that like?
Because we only talked to like a reception person and we didn't get a chance to like kind of present our whole case. It was not like as stressful, but I've like had I practiced the speech like out loud. Like, okay, what do I need to say? Like, what happened? Just like making sure I knew all the words and how I would say it. So it was definitely like kind of stressful, but I think it's probably pretty common for Americans to come to Mexico. It's like kind of larger touristy areas and not speak very much Spanish or like feel entitled to some help. I think like, we can
Mm-hmm.
tend to have kind of a not so great
Reputation.
reputation when traveling to like Mexico or Spanish speaking countries. And so the fact that I knew enough, I think, to like communicate and kind of explain the problem and listen to him. And I have to say, oh, like, I'm sorry, I don't really understand a lot of what you're saying. So they're able to kind of slow down and like help me understand them. Um, but that like feels good. And I think they probably think, oh, like a cute little couple, like one of them's speaking English, one of them's learning English.
Or Spanish.
So, or Spanish. One of them speaks a little bit Spanish. One of them's learning Spanish. Was like it's rewarding for sure. I was ready. Like I was ready to present our whole case and like negotiate and like figure it out. So I was kind of almost like frustrated that like I was ready to do it right then at that moment. But yeah, it feels good. It makes me kind of nervous, but I think also because we're in like a not so touristy part of the country and we're like actively learning and trying to speak, I think people like here are just really nice in general, and so they find it like endearing. They're like, oh, like you're trying and will help us. Like, you know, we were even just asking questions to our Uber driver on the way home, like, oh, okay, if we wanted to say this, like, what would we use here? What word would we use or stuff like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Como se dice Aguascalientes es hermoso o uh, hermosa? Femenina or masculino?
Masculine. Yeah.
Yeah. And it turns out it's masculine, So in a lot of the, like Western languages would feminize a city or a country, right? Like, oh, our land, she, her,
Yeah.
and for no, apparently in Espanol, at least when we're talking about
At least,
Aguascalientes,
yeah.
no. So, and I was able to say a little bit. I was able to charm him just a little bit, I think, when we were in there, because I was like, about to ask Anne to translate something, but then I turned to him first and I was like, lo siento, mi no hablo español muy bien, which is like, I don't speak very good. And he's like, and then, but then I kind
Yeah.
of pointed at Anne, and so then I asked Anne, and then she was able to ask him, and so I think that, yeah, you're right. People find it endearing because a lot of the time when they do encounter gringos, they're not trying to learn the language. But one of the nice things about being here is that there's not a lot of them. And so, we kind of, people are like, oh my gosh, look, it's some young Americans and they're not just
Yeah.
like retiree expats and they are trying to learn the language. And so, that's encouraging.
Yeah, like we didn't just move here to take advantage of the economy. We're not just here for a little bit. Like people are so shocked. They're like, wow, you're going to be here for 5 months. And we're like, yeah, we're just here to like learn Spanish. I mean, trying to do some work online and like make some money just online. But like the reason we came to Mexico as opposed to just doing that in the United States or doing it in Europe or doing it in another like affordable country is, well, we wanted to learn Spanish.
Right. And in Anne's case, it's more about building confidence.
It's building up the skills, like improving my listening comprehension, because it's one thing to speak Spanish like in a classroom where everyone else is not a native Spanish speaker. But then when you're talking to people who have been speaking this language their whole life and they have, they can conjugate, like it's just second nature to them. And so like learning all these new words and like really having to listen and pay attention and improve my like listening comprehension for native speakers has been really good and rewarding. But it's also been good to just, to be able to like practice, be reminded of words that, oh yeah, that word. Oh yeah, that's what that means.
Yeah.
So highly recommend any Spanish teacher you'll ever encounter like in a school setting will say, I can only teach you so much. Really, the best way to learn is go immerse yourself and live in a Spanish-speaking country. So I took that seriously. So, okay.
And seriously, we've been told that our whole lives. I mean, me in various contexts where people are basically saying there's no kind of, for me, like a lot of my pre-college friends acting like, well, what's the point of studying a language? You just need to go there. Whereas on your side, like, it's being really encouraged, study it and be immersed. And so both of us have heard immerse yourself, like our whole lives. And then when we finally make that decision, a lot of people are like, but why are you going there? And it's like,
yeah,
shouldn't shouldn't people just assume? Shouldn't it be a common enough thing that people are going for the reason of immersion? Like, shouldn't that be
Mm,
normal, considering the fact that we've been told that our whole life? But apparently nobody
yeah.
takes the demand seriously. So, but here we are. We're trying. Hopefully we don't get deported by the federales. Hopefully.
We told our Uber driver, we're like, yeah, we're really nervous because they got our document wrong, and she was like, you don't need to worry, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. They won't even look at your papers. They're so nice there. You'll be fine. So that was, I guess, like reassuring. And I've been in communication with a couple of immigration lawyers. Um, and there are, I suppose, some advice that we like legitimately got. This person wasn't trying to be funny, but they're like, you can always like leave the country, go to the United States, and then re-enter and actually like get it right there. So that is an option. If worst comes to worst, they go, yeah, there's not really anything we can do. Like you have to leave, then just leave and come right back. But we're hoping that we can get it all worked out next week. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so that's that. That's probably the biggest factor, but I do want to bring up the other factor because, not a lot of people watch this channel, but it seems like all the right people tend to watch it, meaning that a lot of unique opportunities have come through the work that I do on this channel. And so I wanted to take a moment here for our future listeners, for our podcast listeners, for anybody who checks this out today. If you know of a good job, a good online job, let us know. Yeah, and do you want to talk a little bit about the angst of being a post grad, on the job hunt?
Yeah. So I graduated from college in 2021. And right out of that, I had like in-person jobs kind of lined up. And I kind of intentionally took a break from like doing anything super rigorous. So I worked in a couple different bakeries for a year. I also got asked to like come teach and help develop and be a discussion leader for a course at the university I graduated from. And so come, September, October of 2022, and Dave and I just decided, wow, this like Boise, Idaho, where we were living is like not really affordable for us anymore. Even both working full-time jobs, me full-time plus the teaching job. It was like, wow, I'm living in I don't know the square footage, but a tiny little studio apartment that has room for a bed, a microscopic kitchen table, a tiny little kitchen. There's not even space for a microwave in it, and a bathroom for $925 a month. And that was the cheapest thing that I could find. That like I scoured the internet, I searched high and low for like somewhere to live, and that was like the cheapest place in the area for a shitty little studio. And so we just decided, hey, well, we've really got nothing tying us down here to the United States. Let's travel for a year. Everyone says, oh, travel while you're young, travel while you're young. Like, absolutely. We were like having a really great time here, meeting people. We had a great time while we were in Europe. But part of that was, okay, cool, we'll travel and I will do, Dave's building up Theory Underground with the hopes that like can become somewhat like financially feasible. And then so I was like, great, I'll just, find some online work. And, at that time, especially like October, November, it seemed like everywhere was hiring. Everyone goes, why doesn't anyone want to work? We're so low staffed. Everywhere is hiring. So I go, great, finding a remote job in this economy, it'll be easy. It'll be so easy.
And I would add that you went for job counseling at Boise State.
I went for a counseling appointment. I got referred to some like platforms. I got some kind of resume advice. I feel pretty strongly about like the resume that I made. I feel like it's pretty good. I feel like I can write a good cover letter. Like I'm to my own demise, I suppose, I'm like a doer and an overachiever, especially for like a teacher or a professor. And so it's like, yeah, I'd be a great employee doing like research assistantship online, data entry, anything like that. And so I've applied to a handful of research assistantships, as well as quite a few like data entry positions, administrative assistant positions, like things that I can kind of easily do online that are within my skill set, that are within my personality type, that are within my interests. Like I genuinely enjoy like data entry and clerical work just because I'm like what's called a conventional personality type. And so just those kind of repetitive, organized, seemingly like monotonous or like extra logistical tasks, I'm like, that is my thing. Like dealing with this whole visa thing. I'm like, okay, figuring out all the logistics here. Like I'm a logistic brain.
This is
Every
why
relationship has a logistic brain person, and maybe I'm not logistic brain, but like someone who's maybe a bit more like creative and relaxed and spontaneous. And it works really well. But like I'm a logistics person, and so I thrive at those jobs. And I've applied to I don't know how many, a lot, like a pretty good amount. And literally, like out of all of them, I've been applying to jobs from mid-November, beginning of November, mid-November to like now, like today. Maybe three of them have actually gotten back to me and said, oh, like, thank you. We've, selected another candidate. The rest, like, silent. Like, I have no verification if they've even looked at my application. I've sent follow-up emails to a number of the ones that I can find like an email address for. Because some of them, like I can't find an email address, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that's poof in the air.
exactly.
But it's like, dang, these places. And I saw like a tweet or a post just a few days ago where someone was like, I've applied to 33 jobs in the last 2 months and have heard back from 2. I'm like, what? They can't. And I think I've heard that like, oh, companies will make fake job postings for tax purposes, blah, blah, blah. It's like some of them, like I've literally gone directly to their website and done like creating an account and done it. So I try to avoid applying through like Indeed or Glassdoor. I try to go directly to the source because I just like that gets it to them faster and is a little bit more legitimate. But like no one's getting back to me. So I'm like, ooh, what side hustles can I do? What freelance can I do? While I like just keep applying and look and finding good opportunities, because it's like it's not that expensive to live here, but it's like, well, we need to like pay for our Airbnb and food and be able to get back home. So that's been a little bit stressful and on my mind, and is like detracting from my ability to participate in Theory Underground in the extent that I do, which is like through some of these courses, because I'm so preoccupied just like stressing and thinking about money that it is almost like a debilitating kind of stress where I'm like, I can't do anything. So that is the struggle. I don't know how this relates. You could probably tie it in somehow to
Yeah,
Theory Underground week in
yeah.
review, but
It's time to write.
it's
It's time
stressful. It's a
to.
lot.
Can you
So.
hear me? Oh, it's time to write the follow up. I was gonna say, it's time to write the follow up to Arendt's work. It would be called "Ands in Dark Times." But you've had quite the insight into this part of the student experience, from being the student to being the instructor with that course. Is college worth it? And one of the things you all talked about in your course was the job situation. Do you think that those discussions or the research that you were doing in that course adequately prepared you or your expectations for these realities you are encountering?
I mean, I think like deep down in my soul, I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. Like that people are screwed over and unable to find jobs right now. And like it makes sense economically. It makes sense from the research. I think there's just like a lot of, students, they leave school and they're not always getting like that great corporate job that they want. But I think it's like I think we all probably think, oh well, that doesn't apply to me. My resume is great. Oh, I'll get a job easy. And so like deep down, I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. And I don't really know what to do about it except for like keep trying. And especially the issue with remote jobs, because you think like, oh, remote jobs have boomed after COVID
Mm-hmm.
and a lot more people are working from home. A lot of companies have a lot of opportunities to work from home. I mean, we know a handful of people who work from home, either like with a business or they kind of do their own freelancing thing. So it's definitely possible. Like I know that it is. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, so but like I'm used to kind of advocating for myself in person. So going to a business and saying, "Hi, can I speak to someone? Can I give my manager to someone?" Being able to make phone calls and like put like names to faces. That's how I've been offered a lot of jobs. Like while I was in college, is just literally going somewhere and being, "Oh, they're hiring. Okay, I'm gonna go and talk to them." So now when it's online and there's places all over the United States and some of them don't even have email addresses and some of them don't even have like application portals on their website. You have to do it through Indeed. There's like, well, what more can I do? You know?
Yeah, and the kinds of jobs that you got in college as well, like these are what they call entry level. These are, they don't pay that great. I mean, obviously the as a baker, waking up at 4:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning, going to bake, you were it's I mean that was it wasn't it was barely covering rent, you know. And yeah, you were able to go in there and get the job, but that's not one of these kinds of jobs that the degree is supposed to unlock, right? And so,
Yeah, you're supposed to have like access to kind of more like careers, which is what I've been applying for, and it's also frustrating because of how specific some of these jobs are. Is like it disqualifies me. Like I can't even apply. It's like, oh, I matched 80% of what they want, but they want you to have a master's degree, or they want you to know this like very, very specific type of like qualitative research or quantitative research platform, or there's this and that thing. And I think that's like always been a struggle and kind of like an internet meme is like, oh, all of these places are requiring like X amount of years. You have to have had this many years of experience. It's like, I match every single qualification except for the experience. If all these jobs need you to have prior experience in the field, then where are people getting the experience if they're not getting these fields? That's always something that I think like students have talked about, and that's kind of like an internet meme is where am I supposed to get the experience if you're not hiring me because I don't have the experience? And everywhere seems to want some sort of experience. So it definitely when it says must have 3 years of experience in data or in this or in that, and like some of them I go, well, I did like 2.5, 3 years of research, and I go, oh, that's data, and I kind of leave it vague. But some of them that would be like a great match with a great company that would offer good pay, it's like disqualified because I don't match the like very specific experience that they're looking for.
yeah, and one of the things that really gets under my skin, I find it so frustrating when I'm thinking about the fact that, like, you have the experience in the sense that you've been, gifted track and in advanced classes your entire life, and you are so disciplined and logistical, that if there's anything you have to learn at a job, you're able to. They should be able to look at that transcript and go, oh yeah, she can learn anything. Literally anything. She's able to learn science, she's able to learn math, she's able to learn any obscure philosophical, historical, geological, anything. You have this amazing ability that not everybody has, right? Like what would it be like to be in the situation of trying to get a job that can actually pay bills, but you weren't in the top 1% of every class that you've always been in the top 1%. And so it's like, that's a crazy situation to be in today. And also with that discipline, with those logistics, your ability to navigate the bureaucratic acrobatics, the red tape, the hoops, you are doing more in terms of the hunt than a lot of other people. And I know this because I've had a lot of roommates who are on the hunt. I've been on the hunt. I've asked a lot of other people about their experiences on the job hunt. And so just in comparison to everyone else I know, I mean, if you're struggling, I'm sure everyone is struggling. And that's one of the things that I think this combo of courses we're doing right now, the idea of the university and the professional managerial class consciousness and ideology courses, both kind of have something to say or inform us about, right? Like, I think I'm going to be letting somebody into the call here in a little bit once we kind of close out these threads. But I just kind of wanted to ask you about tying that into any of the readings that we've been doing or any of the conversations that have been going on about this. Actually, I will let Sabine in just in case Sabine can't hear us really quick here. So welcome to the chat here. Sabine, I think you're probably able to hear me. Hey, welcome.
I can hear you. Hello?
It's bad.
We can hear you, but it's like very, very noisy. Yeah.
It was like, welcome, Sabine. It was, yeah.
Like an
Let's see. Actually, how about this, Sabine? We wanted to bring you in just in case you were not watching the live version of this, but we're live right now, so welcome. You don't have to show your face. You can always mute or turn off your camera or whatever. But yes, we're currently live. There's only a few people watching, like 4. And probably 150 in the total life of this video. But I wanted to let you in while we were working on closing these threads that we were working out here, just in case you weren't watching the live version. Were you? Were you watching it? Yeah.
I was watching some of it, but I think the live version has been a little bit behind.
Yeah, that's indecipherable. I think that there's an issue with not just like the background being loud or something, but it's like garbled microphone. So you can mess around, I guess, and you can always type in the chat and we'll read it out loud. So, but anyway, thank you for joining this sort of community week in review event. Okay. They're going to go work that out.
I can answer your question.
There we go.
As far as relating kind of the struggle to like the idea of the university or the professional managerial class, I think like you said, it definitely kind of ties in. And I think so with the idea of the university, you talk about Jaspers' conception of what the idea of the university is supposed to look like, and it's supposed to be this institution for like learning and engaging with your peers and research and seeking truth, which I did my best to take advantage of that. And companies claim, oh, we want critical thinkers. We want people who like love to learn and are passionate. And so kind of that aligns with they claim that they want someone who embodies these ideals of the university, but at the same time they want an employee. And so the current university is structured to like, oh, it's gonna get you out, get you your degree, get you your job. And so it's like I'm stuck in between these two worlds of like doing it, going to school, getting higher education because I genuinely care and I care about education and I wanted to learn, and then also doing it because, oh, well, society says that's the way that I'm going to get a good job. And so it's frustrating when it's like, I did it. I not only did I do it, but I graduated with a high GPA. I did, I participated in research cohorts and had research assistantships. I checked all the boxes, like, so to say, but I tried my best to like accelerate and go above and beyond and be a really great student. And so to have gone through that and still be at the other end, like struggling to find a career, to start a career, to do something that is in line with my like what my major was and what my skills are that I was able to develop, it just makes you think, well, then what is the point of the university if students are even struggling to get a job, if it's not following the idea of the university in Jaspers' perspective, then it's this like corporate job machine. But if it's not doing either of those things, then what is it doing? It's taking all of our money from us.
Yeah,
so there's that. And then on the other hand, you have this professional managerial class rhetoric of, oh, the best way to get out of your situation is just to go to school and to get educated. And that's going to open up so many opportunities for you. And it's like, you have to still think, yeah, well, I'm young, I'm traveling, but also I got to pay for stuff. Like, I did it. Like, I did what the liberals wanted me to do. I went to school. I studied social science. I graduated with high degree. Like, I tried so hard to kind of do what I was supposed to do and do it well. And according to, education is just the solution. Education will end poverty. Education will open up so many opportunities in your life. And I think, I know that things aren't just going to be handed to me in life and that I have to work for them and keep applying to jobs that you would think after applying to like well over 15 at this point, someone would have at least gotten back to me or scheduled me for an interview. You know what? This is a public service announcement. There are job scammers now. If you have been out there like applying on Indeed, the scammers like will figure that out. So I got a text message saying, "Hi, this is so and so, getting back to you from your Indeed application for data entry clerk." It's like, oh, yep, that's correct. Like they knew my name. They somehow knew my whole name. They said, "This is Sam Snowgrove." Great, cool. We're gonna schedule, an interview with you. So like everything seemed real up until this point. This person's like, "Great, I'm gonna connect you to the Zoom of our hiring manager. He's gonna give you the information." And when it started to get fishy was I was communicating with this hiring person, like this other person with the company on Zoom, like in the Zoom chat, trying to figure out like when to have this meeting. And he copied and pasted a text message that I had gotten from this other person on my phone number. And I was like, and they were like, "The interview has to be conducted over text message before we can give you any information. You'll see, just wait, okay?" It was like really bizarre. And so I looked it up and it's like, oh, job scams are a thing now. And so the whole like college costing so much with the premise that you're going to get a great job right out of it. And then the discourse that, you have to have this education to even have a good career, followed by the fact that while you're just like searching for jobs online, like when you're traveling or if you're just searching for remote, there's even people out there who are trying to scam you. It's all so predatory for young people who are literally just trying to make some sort of like real income to start building for their future. And for a lot of people, like paying off their debt and saving for like potential family or, medical emergencies, but at this point, it's just like paying for food and rent, and it's hard. It's very hard. They hate us.
Thank you for sharing all of that. Sabine, do you want to try your new microphone?
How are we sounding?
Clear as the day.
Hey, we're in business.
Welcome, Sabine. How are you doing today?
Doing well. I'm having a travel experience, buying new art supplies. It's lovely.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, and you are in the course on the PMC. Is that correct?
The PMC course, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And how's that going for you so far?
I'm liking it a lot. There's a lot of fascinating ideas to chew on. I feel like it's lining up well with some other ideas I've been turning over around more technological concepts of subjugation. And I think it's a really useful, just knowing the planning of this class over the last 150 years or so is extremely illuminating. And
like knowing that there was actual, I'm sorry, but like you mean like knowing that there was actually like it was part of the progressive plan, like that they actually were explicit about it.
Yeah. I don't know if you got a chance to read my response to some of the pieces I just posted earlier today, but sort of as we can conceive of a labor body that's being somewhat lobotomized in this like introduction of another class that's taking over engineering roles, that's taking over managerial roles, and just how that's sort of refined throughout the years until we're at this place of working for an app or for an AI or for scientifically perfected in the what's the guy's name? Taylorist sense. Yeah. So I don't know, an interesting lay of the land for this like proto fortification, proto gigification of everything. So I found that very valuable, and also just this space to like, put forward some ideas and get weird with it has been lovely.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to share in terms of like, are you a student right now? Are you working right now? I mean, as far as introducing yourself to anybody who's never met you before, I always give people who pop on an opportunity. If you have a channel or anything else that you plug, like a blog, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I don't have really anything to plug right now. Just, I feel like the things I'm working on are still pretty coming into being. So I'll be putting together a blog soon, and hopefully we can do a reintroduction when I have more things to plug. But, I'm living in New York. I spent the last couple of years converting to Judaism, doing lots of writing and thinking in that regard. And now there's sort of this new space, and, doing therapy. Ew. So I have so much more access to like my mind, to my libidinal self, et cetera, et cetera. So learning some Lacan and getting interested in returning to school sometime soon to just sort of sharpen practice of inquiry and practice of study has been something I'm really looking forward to. And just being able to get a little bit of that through Theory Underground has been pretty great also.
That's awesome. Yeah, Anne, is there anything that you would like to ask or add?
I'm just excited to see a new space here. Sounds like your life is very exciting. Lots of things developing right now. That's really cool. I will probably leave this call so I can finish up a couple things. I'll just say, if anyone out there in the Theory Underground and community needs me to do literally anything for money. Okay, that's a lie. Not literally anything. But research, data, administrative assistant, anything along those lines for a social science person, part-time, full-time, remote, let us know. But Sabine, I'm happy you're here. It's really good to meet you. And I'm going to head out of this call.
Likewise. Nice to meet you too.
Bye, Anne. Yeah, and on that note, if anyone's wondering the best way to contact her, then get on the Theory Underground website, just add her as a connection, which is the more like on Facebook when you friend somebody, it's just it's just called connecting on this site. So we're not going to call it friending because that's kind of, whatever. But yeah, you can add a connection and direct message. And so if you know of anything, then yeah, get a hold of us. Let us know, because right now we've been living primarily off of my money for the last couple months, and the funny thing about that is I don't have a job, so it's like the money that we have is it's like I saved up some money at Amazon last year, and then I sold my tiny house bedroom thing, that I called the foothold. Sold that and got some money for that. I mean, it's actually, I was quite happy with how it worked out, and so was the person who bought it. Right, it was a good deal for both of us, and so anyway. But the funds are dwindling, and if I have to pick up a side gig while doing this, I will. And if Anne's kind of saying the same thing, like she might just start doing some smaller freelance things. But yeah, the goal and the expectation was that there would be some kind of a data entry gig or administrative assistant kind of a thing. And because it looked like there were so many when we both went for job counseling, like last October and November, and then we've continued the communication with the person who does that. Like you talk to the career counselor, and it's just like, oh, it's all plenitude. There are so many things on offer. And then it's like, but where? So, so Sabine, were you able to catch the beginning, the first half, any of the other stuff that's gone on already, or should I catch you up to date?
Quick recap would be fantastic.
Cool. So let's see. It started out with me saying that I would be doing a quick rundown of, like the basic update as far as Theory Underground goes. Then we would talk about some personal complications. The main thing that you missed is that Ann and we thought that we have until the end of May to be in Mexico, and the documents at the airport were, we told them, oh yeah, we're together and we're going to be here until the end of May. And they were like, cool, blah, blah, blah. And then they didn't give us a paper or anything. And the logistical genius that she is, wanting to double check things and look over stuff, goes online, looks at our digital papers, and sees that they had assigned us only 20 days. And so here we are, we've got 2 months in this place already paid for. And we're planning on getting the extension of either this place or a place that's a bit closer to where everything's going on in Aguascalientes. And all of a sudden we're like, we're going to get deported? Like, fuck. So we're in the struggle of jobs. We're in the struggle of our legal status. And it's ironic because we're gringos in this case. And so it's like Mexico getting its revenge on Americans, which is fair enough. But, we're hoping to have it all figured out on Wednesday, which is the day after we're supposed to leave. But when we went to the place today, the person wasn't in, and we talked to someone else and we were able to figure out. He said we should be fine to just come in a day late and get it figured out. They might give us like some fine or something, but it would be like $20. So, hopefully we can get the extension. And then the absolute worst case scenario isn't probably jail. This is a funny little loophole situation. We would have to go to Tijuana and cross a bridge. They call it a sky bridge, onto the San Diego side. They would stamp us, like accept us back into the United States, and then we'd just come right back over. So, I mean, that would just be an inconvenience in the sense of having to pay for the flight to Tijuana on, like next week. Anyway, it's just kind of crazy. The arbitrary lines on national borders and the whole process, and the fact that they we told them what the plan was, and they were like, cool, yeah, you're good. And then they just wrote down, no, fuck you, 20 days. So like the whole thing's like a crazy situation. But, anyway, so that's the main stuff that you missed. But I had said that I was going to probably read Hannah Arendt's article on Carl Jaspers, because it's relatively short and it's interesting. I definitely think it's part of the Theory Underground project here in the first year to remind people that he exists and that he has been underrepresented in theory circles. That insofar as we agree or disagree with him, we should be taking him seriously and actually struggling with him in the way that we would anyone else. But if we can take someone like Kojève seriously, who's obviously a little bit more niche or obscure in terms of it doesn't have that name and face recognition of like a Derrida or something, then I think Carl Jaspers is no less of an exception, and probably I would say more important for my interest, at least, because of the importance of lived, embodied philosophy, right? Like the existentialism. So Jaspers when people think existentialism, they tend to think of Sartre and Camus, and it's like, no, Jaspers is, properly speaking, like the father of existentialism. I think he coined the term. Like he did a lot in terms of resuscitating the image of Nietzsche from the Nazi appropriation before it was cool, before Walter Kaufmann did it. And so, yeah. Anyway, but I will actually be reading that probably next week, and figured we could probably just have a little bit of a chat here and then close out some time in the near future, because I don't like to keep these too long, if possible.
Sure thing. Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah.
Oh, just so far as the upcoming classes, just did want to share, I found a copy of For They Know Not What They Do floating around at a very good price, and it's a very beautiful volume. Someone's from 92. I don't know anything about this book other than that it's an upcoming course that I'm somewhat fascinated by.
And your
face is lighting up, so maybe you want to give me a quick rundown. I'm strongly considering it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what can I say about this course? Why am I excited about this course? Slavoj Žižek is known, in the sense that he's got that face and name recognition. Mm-hmm. But the general way that he is known is as a meme or a sort of clown. Like that article trying to cancel him called him the capitalism's court jester, And so, most of what we see are clips of him saying things, and a lot of his articles, his popular articles in The Guardian or something like that, tend to be like whatever. People who don't think there's a lot going on there, sure, of course, we kind of understand that people wouldn't really, the people would be confused about his success. Especially if you pick up one of his bestseller books and it's just like it's a lot of his political commentary. It's interesting in the way that any article in The Guardian might be interesting, but he is a theorist, and it's hard for people to miss the fact that he is a theorist on the level of a Hegel or of a Derrida, right? And so it's like, well, then where are these essential texts of his? And it's basically the early ones that are the most formative and that really established him in the world of theory. It's two books. It's Sublime Objective Ideology and For They Know Not What They Do. Sublime Object of Ideology is basically his Lacan book, and applying Lacan or to Marxism, and thinking like, how do we resuscitate the psychoanalytic project as well as the Marxist project in the wake of their being so discredited by the Black Book on Communism or the Black Book on Psychoanalysis, which are two books that are just these giant compilations of takedowns. And he says, well, we have to do it by going back to Marx through Hegel, through Lacan, right? Which is like, whoa, how are you going to do that? And so Sublime Objective Ideology is the one that people typically read if they get into the more theoretical side of him. Or, there's other ones like The Plague of Fantasies, or Sex in the Failed Absolute, or Less Than Nothing is kind of his masterpiece in the sense that it really does bring together a lot of the early stuff from Sublime Object and For They Know Not What They Do. It just happens to be like insanely large. Like it's a fat book. And so for us, For They Know Not What They Do, though, became the one that we wanted to focus on this year because we were in a discussion group being led by Zizek and So On podcast last year. They're great people. And Matthew Flisfader is a professor who was facilitating those conversations. And we thought what was missing is an actual crash course that does an lecture style approach. And that tends to be what's missing in the world of theory. If you want an introductory course in any of these theorists, you're not going to find it, or it's going to be very hard to come by. And if you go to like the New Center for Research and Practice, it's going to be something like Hegel, Aesthetics, and AI. And it's basically someone who wrote a book or is writing a book doing a special topic seminar, and then they usually don't even lecture. They kind of assume that you already have a basis in all of those things, and they're kind of facilitating conversation. And so this facilitating conversation style approach is good if the people involved have gotten that sort of intro crash course. But for working class people or people who are new to theory, both, because anything that is accessible to a working class person is going to, who's obviously very interested already, passionate. If it's accessible to that person working with earbuds, then it's going to be accessible to anybody getting into this stuff is kind of the idea. And for us, myself and Michael Downs of the Dangerous Maybe blog, neither of us have been able to find those kind of introductory courses that we crave. And he's been studying philosophy now for like 18 years. He's finally at the point where he feels confident enough to teach a course like this one. And so he's never done a full lecture course. He's done guest lectures at various universities. He's done smaller things on his own YouTube channel back in the day. He's done a lot of these amazing sort of like his blog posts are game changers in terms of if you're getting into trying to understand psychoanalysis. So like his Objet Petit A post is the definitive thing that you need to read about that concept. The post on the phallus, definitive thing that you need to read on that concept. And so I got him to start teaching me Lacan and Zizek over the last few years on my channel. And I've been re-releasing these in 20 to 30 minute clips. And so all of the intro to Lacan stuff has gone up recently. And coming up, as long as I can keep working here and without having to worry about moving, going to be releasing the intro to Zizek stuff. And so before the For They Know Not What They Do course launches, there should be a new video every day introducing you to the basics of Zizekian theory of ideology. But For They Know Not What They Do is the Hegelian work. And so when I think of Hegel, I think of some guy who looks like a founding father almost. You know what I mean? Like why? Are we going to be reading Leibniz next? Why is it Hegel? And the reason we have to go through Hegel is because he was so fundamental to Marx. But Marx and the young Hegelians he was a part of, as well as everybody after him, basically mistook Hegel for this simplistic thesis versus antithesis turns into synthesis approach, which is actually Fichtean. Fichte was someone who was like a compatriot of Hegel's, and Hegel was very critical of Fichte. And so what Zizek and Todd McGowan have done for, as well as like Dallaire and Alenka Zupančić and a bunch of other of these Slovenian circle people, what they've done for Hegel studies is to show us that this idea, this stereotype of Hegel as being this thinker of totality that sees world history on a teleological tract that, and it's all predictable and we can understand how it's going to go and we can reach absolute knowing and all of this other stuff. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. And he's actually the thinker of contradiction. And that's the thing that we need to focus on. What does it mean that he's the thinker of contradiction? And so this course, unlike the PMC course, unlike the Idea of University course, which are the only two courses Theory Undergrad has put on so far, this will be the first where it's like in the deep end. And so if you're not currently pulled between like 20 competing obligations like every student tends to be, or if you're not working a soul-sucking job that makes it so you can't dive in the deep end at the moment, then this might be one of those special opportunities. That's why I get excited, is because Mikey is going to be lecturing. And I just think that it's so rare to get someone who has his old normie ears still lecturing. And that's like a special skill set to be able to remember what this theory stuff sounds like before you have a basis in it. Because it's too easy to learn it over time, and then eventually you've internalized it all, but you don't remember what it was like to be so alienated by it all. And so, yeah, that's why I'm excited.
Yeah, sure. No, I've been catching up with the Gauss Lacan lectures, and that's been really nice in conjunction with Bruce Fink's clinical introduction.
Nice.
Really a good pairing for getting a little bit of a basis, but it is, extraordinarily heady. So, yeah, that and coming back to Zizek as something other than funny man is, I have some hope for it. It should be interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited you're excited, or at least interested. And this is the year of Zizek. I will be teaching a course on being in time this summer. There will be other short courses. There are plans to do Alenka Zupančić's What is Sex, which would be a bit more of a short course. And then there's a few other short courses in the works. But in a lot of ways, this is the year of Zizek, as far as a lot of people who they know there's something more there, and they just haven't figured out exactly what that is yet. They're going to find it this year. So
it's also nice, like my first couple attempts at college, it's like, I'm going to go and pay you to learn about being gay and communism. That seems insane. I can do that far better on my own. And then sort of coming back to this or this particular project of being like, I'm going to go to grad school to maybe learn something cool. No. Or I'm going to shell out for EGS or the new school to maybe run into some, no, give me the basics. Give me something to work with, something to chew on.
Yes. And I mean, in that idea right there, give me something to work with. Lecture. Do it. Mm-hmm. For Marx, there's David Harvey. Obviously, there's a lot of Marxists, but what sets David Harvey apart is that he has taught Capital every year for 30 years. He has new students every year, and they read Capital cover to cover. For Being in Time, there was Hubert Dreyfus at UC Berkeley, and he taught Being in Time every year. And so, teachers like this are able to really develop an approach to these kinds of texts that are the most important to the entire world of theory, right? But no one's done it like they have for Zizek. And so there's a lot of people who want to work with Zizek, who want to apply him or argue with him. But I'm just excited to be a part of that, to be able to platform that kind of introduction. So Yo, Nance, welcome in the chat. Also, hello to Thomas and Viva Lalita Godfrey. And yeah, thank you, all of you, for participating. And Nance, it's good to see you. But we're about to close this thing out. Just you can always go back over it all. We just don't want to have to repeat ourselves at this point. Want to keep it relatively short. It's a little too late for that. I think we're already over an hour and a half. So Sabine, thank you so much for joining. I'm excited to see where your thought goes. You asked, I will answer your question. I did read your the first paragraph, and then I saw how long it was, and that I was trying to set up for a stream, and so I was like, okay, I'll have to come back to this later. But I was like, okay, I'm excited about this, and so I also have a long post on what we were just talking about, how we do need lectures still, and how there's like this idea that it's radical not to lecture, to refuse lecturing, and to put it on the students, and it's like, no, please just do it. Just actually lecture. Like do it for the 2% of us who actually are here for the we want to try to grasp what's going on, to do it. And so I'll be publishing that here in the next couple of days. So stay tuned. That'll go up on the publications tab of the Theory Underground page, and I'll share it all over the place. But yeah, anything else you'd like to add before we close this thing out?
I guess just for the PMC thing, excited for this possible chance to break some new ground idea-wise, and for some support structure for doing that. So, thanks for holding this space, and it's nice to see you face-to-face, sort of.
Yeah, nice to meet you. And just for everyone else listening or joining, remember, you are able to, if you are a part of the Theory Underground social media course, ecosystem that is just beginning, then you're able to pop into these calls. And so this is the equivalent of like the Discord live or the Twitter live kind of calls that occur, and so next week, roughly around the same time, I'm running on Mexican time now. So